At PetsApp, we help you reduce missed calls and save you time by making your client communications more efficient. But we can't achieve that unless we get you where your pet owners are. We do this by providing you with a listing on the PetsApp website, providing you a widget on your website, and by providing both web and app versions of PetsApp through which your clients can communicate with you. But clients don't even have to download the app with the PetsApp's two-way SMS text chat feature. But then we surface all of this in one convenient location for you and your team on the PetsApp dashboard and in the PetsApp Veterinary team member app. This makes it super efficient for you to respond to chat messages via the web, your website, the app, and SMS text in just one location. In the same location, you can collaborate with team members, use template messages, and template media library files.
There's no place I'd rather be.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PetsApp Thanksgiving webinar. It's awesome to see so many of you turning out this afternoon and joining us for our webinar for Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and welcome to PetsApp. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Will Monk. I'm the CTO and co-founder here at PetsApp with Dr. Thom, who I'm going to introduce in just a second. My background is in software engineering, and for the last 5 years or so, I've been working with veterinary teams to make sure we're empowering them with technology to make their lives in clinic easier, to make sure that they can help their clients even more easily than they could before, improving patient outcomes and life for team members in clinic. And so I'm very excited to be able to introduce Dr. Thom Jenkins this evening to talk about the new veterinary business model. Dr. Thom graduated from Cambridge University and has run clinics in the UK and Asia, and has built PetsApp with me over the last few years. He was the inaugural chair of VetForum UK, US, and APAC, and he's extremely proud of the work that we've done alleviating the load on veterinary teams over the last few years. So thank you for everybody for joining us, and I'm going to hand over to Dr. Thom, who is going to give us a load of interesting information on the new veterinary business model. I would encourage everybody to put questions into the Q&A box, which you should be able to see somewhere down at the bottom of your screen, and we'll be able to answer those questions as we go along, and anything that gets missed, we will be able to answer at the end as well. Any other questions, just stick them in the chat and I'll be around to help out as we go through. Otherwise, over to you, Dr. Thom, and I will catch up with you at the end.
Thank you for that illustrious introduction, Will. I'm indeed very proud of all the work we're doing to help veterinary clinics. But I'm also slightly suffering from the traditional Thanksgiving cold. So if I cough and splutter my way through this presentation, apologies to everyone in advance. Luckily, I'm not contagious over Zoom, but we'll get through it with the occasional sip of tea, and I'll just beg your patience along the way. So I want to talk to you today about my prescription for a new veterinary business model where we move from a transaction-based economic model that has never been suited to veterinary clinics and towards a model that is more relationship-based, because transactions leave people behind and relationships bring them along. So we'll get on to talk about that. But before we do, I just want to gauge your economic knowledge. I want to get a sense in the room for where we are in terms of macroeconomics and understanding the economic environment in which our businesses exist. So I've been traveling around the world. Last did this in London, before that New York, Reno, Kansas City, Birmingham, all the most exotic locations you can think of, asking veterinary professionals how many of the economists on this screen they can name. So if you all could just let me know in the chat or by your silence how many veterinary professionals here you can name. One? Well, if that one you can name is me, I'm sorry, mate. We've worked together long enough for you to know that I'm not an economist. I'm a veterinarian. So no, I don't count. That silly picture of me is put in there to trick you. But it seems, just looking at the responses here, it seems that the average person on this webinar performs about as well as the average veterinarian across the board, in that we can't name terribly many of the economists labeled. And I think there's a reason for that. I think there's a reason why our economic knowledge is not the best in the veterinary sector. And that's fairly easy to work out. What I think is going on here is economics just hasn't been that relevant to us, because think what happened in the Great Recession. While the rest of the global economy was shrinking, veterinary businesses, veterinary clinics grew, right? And what happened during the pandemic? It was an awful time for all kinds of reasons, and veterinary teams were among the most stretched. But from an economic perspective, from a business perspective, while the rest of the economy shrunk, veterinary businesses grew. We saw this like incredible boost in pet ownership, this pet ownership boom, right? And that drove business growth, and we had so much demand we didn't know how to keep up with it. So I'm sorry, Friedrich, Milton, Janet, Thomas, and John. We don't know you, and we don't need to know you, because we're doing just fine without having to dig out our economics textbooks. But on that note, before sort of deciding to cast aside an entire field of human knowledge, including a couple of Nobel Prize winners, just among those people we listed there, I thought, you know, I better do I'd read a book or something. And funnily enough, I had my wife, my long-suffering wife, take this photo, and she said, "When we met, you had a proper job. What exactly is it you do now?" I'm not quite sure, but hopefully we can work that out together. But reading these economists, reading this expertise, absorbing this field, I came to sympathize with President Truman's two-handed economists. There's this possibly apocryphal story, I don't know if you've heard it, about President Truman being desperate, begging for a one-handed economist, because all this economists would say to him is, on the one hand, Mr. President, and then again on the other hand. And for me, looking at the veterinary world, looking at veterinary clinics, veterinary businesses, on the one hand, we might weather the current economic storm just fine, as we always have done. But on the other hand, there is reason to believe this time might be different. And there's two main factors that make me think it might be different. We might not get away without engaging in a little bit of economic theory. And those reasons are a recent history of veterinary price inflation. So we've had inflation come into the broader economy more recently. It's tailed off a little bit now, which is great, but it's not gone backwards. You know, prices aren't going back to what they were. But even before then, for the last, maybe decade, veterinary prices, veterinary fees have been inflating beyond inflation. So there have been super inflationary price increases at veterinary clinics. And that's good. We should charge a fair price for our professional expertise, the products and services that we sell. And historically, we haven't done a great job there. But if we've had historic price inflation where there wasn't inflation in the broader economy, it may mean that we're already at a point where we're going to start encountering price elasticity of demand, i.e. putting up our prices any further just to keep up with the inflation of our cost base could choke off demand, could bring demand down, and it could do so to the extent that a price increase actually erodes revenue rather than grows revenue, right? So if we've had a fairly long history of price inflation, it might mean that we start encountering price elasticity of demand just when we most need the ability to inflate our prices because our costs are inflating. I hope that makes sense. There's not a lot of evidence for this price elasticity of demand, maybe just a slight touch of demand coming down over the last month or so. I think most veterinary clinics would see this as a welcome relief, struggling to keep up. And now this slight drop in demand, it becomes a bit more problematic if that becomes permanent and if it means we have lost pricing power. And now the thing that compounds this, the thing that makes this much worse is what John Williams, president of the New York Fed, likes to point out, that all of this is happening against a background of very high employment. So we've got labor shortages. There aren't enough veterinarians. There aren't enough veterinary technicians, right? And so what you're going to get is these labor shortages are going to mean higher labor costs as businesses compete for talent. Salaries are going to inflate. Now, to people like me who think veterinary professionals have been historically, chronically undervalued, that's a good thing. We're going to get paid more. We're going to pay veterinary professionals more. Hooray! However, if that happens at the same time as we encounter this price elasticity of demand phenomenon, where we can't increase our prices to improve the compensation of our veterinary teams, then the labor shortages, the salary inflation, is going to be more painful for veterinary business owners and veterinary business operators than it would otherwise need to be, or need to have been, I should say. So we're going to have to engage in some economic thought, and there's going to be, don't jump off the webinar just now, because I've decided that economics is a lot like painting. And Degas said painting is easy when you don't know how, very difficult when you do. Given we don't know how, I think this is going to be easy. Bear with me. So what do you do when you are not sure about economics? You pick up a magazine called The Economist. And as it turns out, you don't need to be an economist to read The Economist. I mean, it's incredible. They don't even check. So I found this article about how to run a veterinary, run a business, sorry, not a veterinary business specifically. That would be just too much to ask from a general magazine, but how to run a business at a time of inflation. And this article said that many businesses are about to discover the difficulty of rising prices without reducing demand. And the companies that wield this superpower are going to share a few key attributes. The ones that are going to cope best with this situation are the ones that are going to have weak competition. Their customers are going to have an inability to delay or avoid purchases, or they're going to have inflation-linked revenue streams. And a strong brand also helps. So let's explore this quotation in the context, in the veterinary context. Let's bring this into the veterinary context. Weak competition. Talking of strong brand, more like, the competition that we face are actually quite strong brands, aren't they? You can see some of them here. Chewy, Walmart Plus, partnering with Port to offer a vet in the cloud. Chewy offering a vet in the cloud. Amazon now out to tender, looking to offer telemedicine with a vet in the cloud, looking to disintermediate veterinary clinics with this direct to consumer disruptive offerings. And so instead of us facing weak competition, which maybe historically was true, we're actually maybe being seen, veterinary clinics, the local veterinary clinic is being seen as weak competition by these direct consumer digital disruptors looking to displace the role of the veterinary clinic. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting sort of sick of the kinds of companies that think you can upload Fluffy to the cloud, even if Fluffy here does look like one. But pets are physical beings with physical needs, and they need physical veterinary clinics to service those physical needs. And there's no one better placed than veterinary clinics to offer a joint up online to offline experience. These direct consumer digital disruptors, they cannot offer that. They can only offer the online. But because we have grown despite the economic background, because we have been a recession-resistant, pandemic-proof business, I think we've become slightly anesthetized to the presence, the arrival of these competitive forces, these direct consumer digital disruptive competitive forces looking to eat our lunch, right? We've become slightly anesthetized that. We've become satisfied with a shrinking slice of a growing pie. Maybe that's okay, but how about when the pie stops growing as quickly as it once did? Or heaven forbid, the pie stops growing or begins to shrink. And guess what? These strong brands that we talked about in the last slide are not going to be long content with sharing. And there is a future of the local veterinary clinic, of physical brick and mortar veterinary clinic locations that sees them doing all the low margin stuff that no one else wants to do while carrying the cost of running a physical location. And these direct to consumer digital disruptors doing all the high margin, attractive stuff that yields a good business. So I don't want to see local veterinary clinics carrying the can just because they're serving the physical needs and none of the rest. But I think if we allow these direct to consumer digital disruptors to eat our lunch, if we allow them to displace us from the center, or should I say heart of the pet care journey, then more fool us, because as I say, and this is going to be something of a mantra throughout this webinar, there is no one better placed to offer the joined up online to offline pet care journey that pet owners desire and that benefits our patients than the local veterinary team, local veterinary clinic. And we'll work out what that should look like. So we're confronted with this, what I like to call an obsolete dichotomy of online versus offline. It's not about that anymore. It's online and offline, right? It's just this one weird, wonderful, blended, joined up reality. Not clicks versus bricks, but the best of clicks and bricks that veterinary clinics can offer. And to be fair, it would be disingenuous of me to pretend that this is entirely new to the veterinary world. As Will said at the beginning, we're already helping hundreds of veterinary clinics internationally in the USA and elsewhere deliver joined up online to offline pet care experiences to pet owners, and increasing convenience for the teams. So reducing missed calls by 85%, saving the average veterinary team 3 hours every single day, while delivering experiences that just delight pet owners. That App Store rating should not say 4.9 out of 5. It should say 5 out of 5. This really does delight pet owners while giving veterinary teams the tools they need to do what you need them to do without asking more of them, preferably asking somewhat less of them. Okay, so let's come back to our quotation. We talked about the weak competition and how perhaps the competition that veterinary clinics face is not as weak as it once was. But what about customers' inability to delay or avoid a purchase? How do you think we score? How do you think we scored there? I'll give you a minute to just post any comments in the chat, and let Will can sort of gather those for me as relevant. I think my opinion here is that historically we've scored very well there. You know, if you need a vaccination, you have to come in and get a vaccination. If you want to prevent fleas or other parasites, heartworm, whatever it might be, you need to come in and get the right medication. If your pet's on chronic medication, you need to come in and you need to get that medication. However, during the pandemic, we tolerated a certain laxity, didn't we? We relaxed some of the rules. And I'm not saying this wasn't done for good reason, but we sort of allowed people to delay vaccinations. We told them that maybe parasiticides were not as urgent as they once were. You know, we were facing overwhelming demand. We were struggling operationally. And so we might trade them out of some of the good habits that actually took years for us as a sector to form in terms of preventive healthcare. And to paraphrase Samuel Johnson, apologies for this very wordy quotation, I'll let you read that. He was a very wordy man. But to paraphrase him, he said, the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. And the risk is that over the course of the pandemic and those exceptional circumstances, habits that we once thought were too strong to be broken have actually been disrupted. And that could lead to lower levels of concordance and compliance with veterinary healthcare recommendations that we once took for granted as being something that, you know, a significant portion of pet owners would comply with. There are opportunities to be had as we reform those habits, though. We get to challenge some of the historic assumptions, and we get to set up new tools, new ways of ingraining those good habits. Okay, so I'm being a bit doom and gloom. Apologies for that. But as my Midwestern friend, for those of you that don't know, I'm based in the Midwest. This is a Minnesotan accent. I'm working on it. But my Midwestern friend, Warren Buffett, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, he says, predicting rain doesn't count. And this is the NOAA rule. Predicting rain doesn't count. Building arcs does. So if I think we might be facing a difficult economic climate, some challenges in the veterinary professions, in the world of veterinary clinics, a world that I'm very passionate about, what do I think we should do about it? You know, there's no point just forecasting the rain. What do I think we should change? Change. I said it, didn't I? I had to go and say it, didn't I? It's become something of a dirty word in our profession. Change. You're not allowed to talk about change because everyone's scared of change. We all fear change, don't we? I mean, I don't fear change. You don't. I mean, I'm sure you don't. We've got many. I saw in the beginning poll, we've got many practice owners, practice operators, practice managers in this audience. So we don't fear change. It's our teams. They fear change, don't they? You know, the people reporting into us, they fear change. And we need to protect them from change, don't we? When you get to think about it, it's pretty condescending stuff. And I don't think it's change veterinary teams fear. Not change. It's your bad decisions that they fear, right? Because veterinary teams need a new way of doing things. They need a better way of doing things. That's just patently obvious. Crushed under the weight of missed calls, their most commonly used tool for client communication is a device, the telephone, that's 200 years old and requires everything to be treated as an emergency until proven otherwise. So they need a new way of doing things. They need a better way of doing things. We've talked about people coming in, disrupting the care that we've worked very carefully to craft. We need to fight back to start now if we're going to advocate for our patients in the way that we want to. So we need change, but we need the right change, right? We need the right decision. And I think this fear of change has too often been used as a euphemism for complacency. And this complacency, an excuse not to come up with the right solutions. And this complacency has led to these even more insidious tyrannies. We talk about the complacency being a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims. That's a quote from C.S. Lewis. But that leaves the way to even more insidious tyrannies, like the tyranny of the telephone. And so we do need to change something, but in changing things, we need to communicate the what's in it for me to veterinary teams. We need to show them that what we're implementing, what we're doing, is not just going to be one more thing. It's going to be the reason you get your lunch today. It's going to be the reason you get home to your family on time. And so we need to embrace the right change in the right way. And maybe I'm being too harsh to practice owners, practice operators. Maybe I'm being too eager to speak truth to power. But as one of my very favorite poets, Audre Lorde, said about matters of even higher stakes, even higher concern, our childhood wars have aged us, but it is the absence of change which will destroy us. Before I get on to my prescription for change, I want to know, and you can just throw this in the chat, I want to know which is your veterinary clinic? Who am I talking to here? Is your veterinary clinic a barely dripping faucet where you're really having to suck on it to try and squeeze out the most demand you possibly can? You're just not facing enough demand? Or is your clinic facing a waterfall of demand, a torrent of demand, more demand than you have capacity for, more demand than you can possibly keep up with? Now I can still see the poll results, but I can't actually see the chat. But there is the odd A in the world, right? There are new veterinary clinic startups that initially have more capacity than in demand. You'd be surprised though, we're seeing veterinary clinics start up and become break even, profitable within 6 months, which when I started out in the veterinary profession, you'd be talking 2-3 years, right? In terms of reaching that break even point, whereas now it's 6 months. It's incredible. So not a lot of barely dripping faucets out there. And yeah, I see the poll coming in now. 100% of you actually are in the waterfall situation where you're facing more demand than you can keep up with. Well, it doesn't really matter to me which you are, because my prescription for change is that we actually get our hands on the faucet of demand and we fill our cups, drink our fill, have as much as we want, no more, no less. So how do we put ourselves in control of how much demand we are able to serve? And this can sometimes be a little bit heretical, because we've all dedicated our lives to the service of companion animal welfare, and there's something of a martyr complex in there, where nothing is too much to ask of me in the service of companion animal welfare. And I'm the worst for this. My childhood hero is Diane Fossey. She literally died in the service of companion animal welfare. And I think she's wonderful. You know, it's dangerous though, isn't it? I think we're all becoming a bit more alive to the dangers. So doing as much as we can and no more is a much healthier way to practice for ourselves, for our teams, for our patients, for our clients, right? This is what we should be aiming for. And to achieve this, what I think we need to do is we need to think of our veterinary businesses as a funnel. And some of you might be familiar of thinking about marketing processes as a funnel, right? But I want you to think of your whole business, all the systems and processes that make up your business as a funnel, with inputs coming in at the top and outputs or outcomes coming out of the bottom. And whatever that funnel does to them is changing those inputs into outcomes, right? And the outcomes we're interested in are many and varied. There could be patient outcomes, there can be financial outcomes, there can be team outcomes, client outcomes, community outcomes, all kinds of outcomes. Every stakeholder that your veterinary practice has, you could map an outcome for them. But what about your inputs? What inputs do you have? Well, the average veterinary clinic sees about 3,000 patients. And so with some quick math, I can work out the kinds of inputs that those 3,000 patients generate. That's 3 millennia of parasite prevention. That's 54,000 nails to tread on or get stuck on your sweater. That's 111,000 gallons of urine. I should say, by the way, that 1,000 gallons of blood, that would be complete exsanguination. So don't go that far, right? Let's take this with a slight pinch of salt. It's 111,600 teeth to scale and polish, x-ray, extract, or get bitten by. It's 200 tons of feces to sample, 6,000 kidneys to keep healthy, and 853,800 bones to keep intact. The question is, what is your veterinary clinic doing with all of that, right? And for those of you that want to interrogate the mathematics here, I've assumed of those 3,000 patients, 60% are dogs and 40% are cats. Believe me, I have had people follow up with me on this, but I think I've done the maths right. Okay, so if we look at this funnel, if we look at these inputs and we look at the outcomes, for the barely dripping faucets out there, there's none of you on this webinar today, but there may be people watching it back. This is recorded, people watching it back that are in this situation. Well, a lack of demand in a business is a frightful thing, but it does mean that you have the time to service the demand that is surfaced to you, right? So if someone comes in for a nail clip, they're going to leave with a dental recommendation just as soon as you've gotten to the bottom of the heart murmur that you detected. You can explore every patient advocacy opportunity for your patients. Of course, you're only going to be recommending what's clinically relevant, and I'm caricaturing here, but you get the idea. You've got the time, you've got the resources, you've got the capacity to advocate extensively for every patient and their needs. For the waterfalls, and that's 100% of you that have been willing to answer the poll question on this webinar. For the waterfalls out there, the waterfall clinics, the clinics facing more demand than they can possibly keep up with, more demand than they have capacity to serve. You're going to be missing your lunch, missing loved ones because you're not getting home on time. And if we're brutally honest, you're going to be missing things, aren't you? In the face of limited time, limited resources, there's going to be patient advocacy opportunities that you just don't get to. Right? And that's why across the veterinary professions, we can sometimes feel like we're facing this bottomless well of demand where we're just scratching the surface despite giving our blood, sweat, tears, best efforts day in, day out. It's never enough. And unfortunately, that's kind of true, right? Pets are still chronically underserved healthcare consumers. The Veterinary Innovation Council estimated that the average pet owner faces 2 pet issues per pet per month. That's 24 pet issues per year. And only 8% of those issues, only 2 out of 24, are actually served by veterinary expertise. Another way of saying that is that 92% of all pet issues go unaddressed by the people best placed to address them, the local veterinary team. Now, why is that? Why do pet owners decide that on 22 out of 24 of the issues they face, the veterinary channel, the veterinary clinic, their local veterinary clinic that they are incredibly bonded to, is not the appropriate channel for them to surface that issue, at least in the first instance through? Well, it's to do with something called the value triangle. And this is where pet owners can interrogate value, not just pet owners, any consumer, any user can interrogate value on 3 dimensions: affordability or cost, quality, and convenience. And in a traditional business school, what you'll be taught is to extract value on 2 out of 3 of those dimensions, right? So do well on 2 out of 3 of those dimensions and extract value for your business on the 3rd by investing less in the 3rd, extract value on the 3rd. So someone can have something quick, conveniently and cheaply, but it's not going to be super high quality. We're going to cut on cost, and that's how we're going to make money. Or someone can have something high quality, affordably, but it's going to take a long time. You might have to wait 18 months for me to schedule that in around other work that I have. Is that kind of get what you pay for mentality? I'm going to fulfill the British stereotype by taking a sip of my tea. And so on this, if you look at the kinds of direct consumer digital disruptors that we talked about earlier and how they perform, they tend to be very affordable, incredibly convenient, but compromise on quality. And so if you think of some of the direct consumer parasiticide products out there that send you your monthly flea treatment that doesn't require any kind of veterinary intervention, if you look at their 5-star reviews, they'll say this is so much cheaper and more convenient than getting this from my veterinary clinic, from the veterinary team. If you look at the 1-star reviews, they'll say despite giving this product as recommended every month, every month on the month, my pet still has fleas. And so it's a quality issue. Where there's issues, it's a quality issue. That's where they're extracting value. And your local veterinary team could have told you that wasn't a quality product. But we don't need to worry about that. Just take the example that they're doing well on 2 out of 3. Now, how do we think local veterinary clinics are doing? The problem is the traditional veterinary clinic performs well on 1 dimension out of the 3. And if you're a direct consumer digital disruptor or someone looking to create a disruptive business, if you find a sector where they're only performing well on 1 out of 3 dimensions, that's a sector that is ripe for disruption, unfortunately. So that's what we're signaling to everyone. We're like saying, we're putting out this beacon by not engaging in the opportunities that we're talking about today. We're sending out this beacon saying, come and disrupt us, come and eat our lunch. And that's not the best signal to put out in the world if you want a long-lived business. And if you care like I do about the position of the local veterinary clinic in the pet care journey. So if we assess the veterinary clinic, the traditional veterinary clinic's performance on these dimensions, we're never going to be a super affordable touch point. We're never going to be a low cost touch point in the pet care journey. And some of you might say, well, what are you on about, Tom? I'm an affordable clinic. I aim to make my services as accessible as possible. And we work with many, even not-for-profit clinics. We work with a charity. And we can do great things there with PetsApp. But even there, it's not seen as a low-cost touch point in the pet care journey. Even where you're trying to be affordable, everything is relative, so it's a perception of the user. And delivering healthcare is expensive. And even the inconvenience of receiving that healthcare can be expensive, transportation costs, etc. So it's very hard for us to ever become a relatively low-cost touch point if you compare it to the other touch points in the pet care journey that pet owner might have. Excuse me. We are, though, a very high-quality touch point. Before we built anything at PetsApp, back in 2018, we did a lot of consumer research, and we found that one pet owner spoke for many in that research when she described the beautiful relationship that she has with her veterinary team. And that's reflected in the 30,000 App Store reviews, 5 out of 5 reviews that pet owners, whether we quite remember it or believe it or not, because we remember the negative experiences more, pet owners love and care for and appreciate and respect their veterinary team, the local veterinary team. Think about how willing many of you would be to describe a beautiful relationship with your accountant or your lawyer. I mean, my sister is my accountant, so that's different, but you get what I mean. There's a special bond here. We're very privileged to have that bond with pet owners. That said, that high quality, that high trust touch point is the one dimension that we score well on, because the third dimension, convenience, we score abysmally on, right? To access veterinary expertise through the traditional model, anytime I want to access the veterinary expertise, I'm going to be told that I need to come in. I'm going to have to phone up, I'm going to have to wait on hold, only to be told I need to come in. I'm going to have to take off work. And there's another touch point that I, as a father of 4, yes, I have inflicted that upon myself as a very happy father of 4. Anytime I go to, well, anywhere, but including the veterinary clinic, I'm likely to have to load kids into car seats. And how many of you think that this stock photo, this particular stock image, reflects your experiences? Please don't say yes. Or if you do say yes, tell me how it's done, because when I'm loading the kids into the car, it never looks like this, but almost always looks like this. One kid in the car, one kid out the car, one kid neither in or out the car, and a dog vomiting in the back. And that's only 3 kids, so we've forgotten one. We'll go back to them. But you get what I mean. There's all kinds of parts of the journey, touch points in the journey that we provide to pet owners that are not the best, that are not the most convenient user experiences. And this is why this inconvenience is a big driver for why we do a pretty good job at capturing pet owners at point of need, at point of critical need, or perceived need, but a less good job at capturing at point of curiosity. Now, you might say, that's great, Tom. I don't want to have, we're just talking about how under pressure my team are. We've told you we're a waterfall veterinary clinic. What aren't you understanding? You're saying that we need to capture more demand. No, the problem here is not that you're not seeing every single pet issue. The problem is who is picking which of the 2 out of the 24 pet issues you are seeing. I'll give you a clue, it's not you, it's not your team, it's pet owners. And they don't always do a good job of picking which issues are the most critical and which are the least critical, which are emergent and which are just point of curiosity. For example, I've had a pet owner rush in to see me with a lump on their cat's abdomen, only for me to diagnose this as their cat's nipple, right? And they said, oh, but doctor, he's a male cat. And I was sort of like, yes, or subconsciously looking down at my own chest. And as much as you try to reassure them, check the teeth, let's do a full check while they're here, they're so desperate to get that cat back in the cat carrier, it helps if you reverse them in, that you can't make the most of patient advocacy opportunities in that touch point. And guess what? The real problem here is that next time they face an issue that they're not sure about, they may be less likely to surface it because they think, nah, it's probably just another nipple. It's probably, something I don't know about. And so we actually reduce the likelihood that pet owner will surface a more important issue to us next time. Because I've had that happen too, right? I'm sure we've all had it, where pet owners come in too late in the disease course because of the stress, effort, practicality of bringing their pets in, and me as a veterinarian telling them it's too late is not value additive either. And so how can we go from having a traditional veterinary clinic where we have this high quality touch point, but limited in the number of pet issues that we get exposed to? And that means sometimes they come in and it's just a consult. I don't know how many of you know this, but if you just do a consult, that's a lost leader in your business. You're not paying to keep the lights on. If all you charge for is a consult, then you're not making any profit. You're not being able to pay your team. You're not being able to invest in your equipment, not being able to grow your business, and expand the number of patients you serve, etc. And so really we want to avoid those lost leader consults, and we want to capture those critical points in order to improve patient outcomes and, yes, improve business outcomes. So we need to move from the traditional clinic model to a model where we actually layer on convenient digital touch points to create this joined up online to offline journey where pet owners can check in with us at point of curiosity. And this is super relevant to cats, right? Because cats, we see them a lot when they're kittens, and then we don't see them at all for a long time, and then we see them again once their kidneys are beyond repair often, right? I don't love that flow in terms of advocating for that patient. And why do the cat owners not bring their cats in the middle period in the intervening years? It's because cat owners love their pets less than dog owners, isn't it? Dog owners just love their pets more. No, of course it isn't, right? It's because the cat owners think they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing the right thing by giving it a rest. They're protecting their cat and protecting the veterinary team and protecting themselves from a stressful touch point, high effort, inconvenient touch point. But if you craft in digital touch points that allow a cat owner to sense check, does this issue justify me coming into the vet? And a veterinary professional tells them yes, they are just as likely to comply with that recommendation as a dog owner, right? So again, part of the rationale for laying on convenient touch points on top of this high trust touch point in the pet care journey. And so we can, by doing this, by laying on digital touch points, like about 650 veterinary clinics have already done with PetsApp, we can expand the total addressable market for veterinary expertise. And so I want to come to you with my suggestion for what your funnel should look like. Remember, we talked about the funnel concept with your inputs and your outputs and everything happening in the middle, representing your systems and processes. I think what we need to do is broaden the top of the funnel. So we expose our teams to a greater proportion of the issues pet owners are facing, but then cherry pick from those the best patient advocacy opportunities that justify taking up in-clinic time and resource. And if we do that, we'll create great client experiences that lead to customer referral. So they'll refer other clients that also travel through the chute very efficiently. The average business is built about 40% on referrals. Get this model right and you'll blow that number out of the water. You could be 100% built on word of mouth customer referral. And so you can see that you have as many presenting pet issues as possible. You then, like I say, cherry pick those. If you have a membership plan in your practice, you match that membership so the pet owner to the right level of membership given their issue. You then, as you explore more patient advocacy opportunities, choose the sales lingo, you cross-sell, upsell those pet owners on products and services that were going to benefit their pet, extend their life, improve the quality of life. Their pet, they experience expanding member value, and you get high value member referrals off the back of that. So I think we should have a broad top of funnel, narrow chute, generating a solid foundation of outputs. And in talking about, a lot of people can't get past when I say the broad top of funnel. What do you mean you want to broaden the top of funnel? What do you mean you want to surface more issues to my team? I've already told you my team are overwhelmed and you're asking me to do more, Well, I'm not actually. I think if anything, veterinary teams could do with doing a little less. But we've got to be careful here, because as Brené Brown says, trust is earned in the smallest of moments. It's not through heroic deeds or highly visible actions. It's through paying attention, listening, and acts of genuine care and attention, right? And so it's the trust is earned in those smallest of moments bit that I want you to remember in connecting with your pet owners, because we're not the only ones. You know, I'm saying to you, I think in this value triangle, I think we should be the highest quality, most convenient touch point. We are already the most trusted touch point, and if we can layer convenience on top of that high trust touch point, we have an almost undisruptable business model for local veterinary clinics that protects the future of local veterinary clinics, right? And as I say, makes them undisruptable, undisplaceable. But we're not the only ones that have noticed this opportunity. Any of you have heard Chewy? Who hasn't, right? It's hard to avoid them. Their stated mission, this is just off their website, is to be the most trusted and convenient destination for pet parents everywhere. They're coming for your lunch too, right? And it sounds familiar, hey? Most trusted, convenient destination for pet parents. And that's what I think local veterinary clinics should be. But if we don't get on with being that, then someone else is also trying to be that, and not just one. It's not. I don't want to just pick on Chewy, but it's a very blatant example. And what are they doing? What are they doing to expand member value? The cost of acquisition that Chewy faced is, I don't have any insider knowledge here, but if you look at their S1 filing from when they went public, I would imagine they're spending a couple of $100 per pet that they acquire onto their platform, and selling them a single bag of pet food is not going to, the margin on that is not going to cover the cost of acquiring that pet owner or that pet. And so they want to transform that transaction into a relationship with a higher customer lifetime value that can more than repay the cost they spent in acquiring them. How do they make the experience more sticky? How do they increase customer lifetime value? By turning the transaction into a relationship, by offering a vet in the cloud, free chat when you subscribe to any of our products on Autoship. Subscribe, commit to repeat transacting with us, repeat purchases, and we'll give you a value add. And that value add is going to be access to one of our vets, not your local vet, but one of our vets. And this is they even put a price here that normally you'd pay $20 for a 20-minute video consult with one of our vets. How many people do we think pay $20 for a video consult with one of their vets? Probably not that many. And again, I don't know, but my instinct would be not that many. And instead, that this $20 is being used as an anchor, a value, a sign of value. That look, you get $20 worth of value each time you do a video call with us, and you get unlimited video calls. All you need to do is subscribe, so that you're buying your pet food, your medication, whatever it might be, through us ongoing. And look here, look at the language being used. No question is too big or too small. Remember Brené Brown, trust is earned in the smallest of moments. So if we're not capturing the trust in those small moments, if we're not allowing a pet owner to surface a photo of their male cat's nipple to us on PetsApp, and taking the opportunity to just reassure them in a very convenient, low-effort way, I think most of us, whatever you think about telemedicine, most of us would be comfortable diagnosing a nipple remotely, right? And so if we're not earning the trust that comes in those moments of reassurance, not just the heroic actions of saving pets' lives, but those moments of reassurance, if we're not earning that trust, if our teams are not earning that trust, who is? But there are other people that want to, and for good reason. It's a great business model to do that. And so we come back to this problem of, okay, Tom, I get it. I need to maintain my position as the highest trust touch point in the pet care journey. Can't lose that, because that's the only one dimension I compete well on as it is. And I've got to layer on convenience. But in doing so, how do I address the demand? Well, Starbucks had this problem, right? They had a problem. Howard Schultz here, founder of Starbucks, said too much demand is a challenge that they faced before, and they will solve it again. What he was saying this when they allowed app users to queue jump at the physical location. So providing online to offline experience, they allowed app users to queue jump, and it led to queues, long lines around the corner of their Starbucks locations. And so he sorted for that. He fixed for that. What are we going to do? right? If we're going to surface a lot of pet issues, we better give our teams the tools to address those in a much more convenient way. I certainly don't want more issues coming in over the telephone because they're ringing off the hook already. And our smart ideas about after a certain number of rings, it goes back to the prep room for a veterinary technician to answer the phone, as if they've got time to do that. Haven't worked out, have they? Or installing additional phone lines, as if our team members were going to grow additional hands to answering them with. That hasn't really solved the issue either. But there are things we can do that mean actually we're not asking more of our teams in this model. We're asking a little bit less of them. We're giving them the tools they need to advocate for their patients in a way that is going to generate the best possible outcomes. So using PetsApp, you can digitally triage the issues that are surfaced to you. A ringing telephone demands to be answered within 3 rings. That's what I trained my teams on when I was running veterinary clinics. You got to answer that phone within 3 rings. I ran clinics internationally, and it was the same thing everywhere. 3 rings to answer the phone. That's the pet owner expectation. It's an impossible expectation to meet. We put pet owners on hold. We miss calls, etc. That's because the phone requires that you treat it as if it were an emergency until proven otherwise. That's why we tell them to answer the phone within 3 rings, is there could be a patient bleeding out on the other end of that phone, and we don't know until we answer it. So you better answer it. You drop whatever else you're doing and answer the phone just to check, right? Well, what if the pet owner issues, came in asynchronously instead of over the ringing telephone? What if you had a welcome message at the start of those interactions that said, an automated welcome message that said, for urgent issues, use the phone, because the phone is great for emergencies. But for non-urgent issues, surface it here and we'll get back to you within our opening hours, within 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, even 5 hours. Our data shows that veterinary teams have up to 5 hours to respond to a chat message when it comes in without degrading customer effort score, if that chat is framed with the right automated welcome message that sets expectations ahead of time. Because the best way to exceed expectations is to start by setting them, and that's what the automated welcome message does. Then the issues that come in, you get to prioritize at a glance. You get to say, okay, this is a medication request. You can even tag it. Let's tag that as a medication request, and I'll come to all my medication requests in one go. So I'm not losing flow. I'm able to just, really optimize my workflow. And this is a great this is a great stress buster. Our veterinary teams are under stress, but what's a great way to solve for stress or turn negative stress into eustress, more positive form of stress? Give people control. Give people a sense of control over their own workflows, and allowing people to prioritize at a glance, actually see the issues that are coming in and decide as and when they're going to deal with them. That is a really good way to delight your teams. And in this way, you can avoid lost leader consults. Someone comes in with a photo of their cat's nipple. You can say, that's a cat's nipple. Don't worry about it. That, yes, seen this one before. Don't, it's not a tick. It's not a lump. It's your cat's nipple. Fine. That reassurance has been dispensed. That trust has been earned, and it took you literally seconds at a time of your choosing, and avoided that issue coming into the clinic and taking up valuable in-clinic time and resources. What about that? So that's pet owner issues coming inbound. What about your communications going outbound? Think about when you admit a patient to the clinic. Please, if you have an answer to this, please share it in the chat, because in my career as a veterinarian, seeing patients, I hung my stethoscope up a little while ago, but I was a consulting vet. When I admitted a patient to the hospital for a procedure, or whatever it might be, even just routine procedures, neutering, dentistry, I would say something along the lines of, don't call us, we'll call you, no news is good news. Now, I'd try it on all kinds of different ways. Make it sound gentler, maybe a bit firmer. It didn't work. Does anyone have wording that works there? I haven't come across, I've talked to thousands of veterinary professionals, probably tens of thousands of veterinary professionals at this point. And I had no one's come up to me and said, actually, Tom, I have a magic phraseology, magic phrasing that works. They always call, don't they? They always call you. And when do they call you? They call you when you're trying to take blood from a fractious cat. They call you when you're trying to take blood, maybe even from their cat, or they call you when you're scrubbing up for surgery, or whatever it might be. But whatever it is, you can't get to the phone. So what do? You call them back. And do they answer? No, they don't. No, they don't answer, do they? So you leave a beautifully crafted voicemail message. You should have heard some of the voicemail messages I left. Just beautiful. Oh, don't believe me? Well, we'll never know because no one ever listened to them. There's no one to ask. There's no one to check. Were Dr. Thom's voicemail messages beautifully crafted? Don't know. They were never listened to. And I'm sure yours aren't either, because what happens, they see the missed call from the vet and they call you back. Their pet could be in for a nail clip and they're convinced that you're calling to let them know that their patient's died. It's terrible. It's a terrible situation. You've got to have empathy for the pet owner. They are worried. Their pet's in at the hospital. They just want to know the pet is still doing well, right? So you call them back, they call you back. We have this thing that people call telephone tennis or games of phone tag. We call them games, but no one enjoys them. Instead, what you can do, use the Veterinary team member app. So we have a web version that you can access on a desktop, laptop, wherever you like. But we also have a mobile app for the Veterinary team that allows you to use a smartphone or a tablet, just snap a photo at a time you're choosing, very quick, snap a photo of the pet looking very much alive, having recovered from the procedure, send that on the chat. Takes you maybe 20 seconds to do, and it delights pet owners and it saves you this game of phone tag because you do it at a time of your choosing and you can be guaranteed the pet owner receives it. So that's inpatient updates. People take this further. They request payment at that point for the procedure. They send the invoice across and request payment. And so then what about discharge? Well, your vet techs or your vets doing the discharge can hold up the phone and they're in the kennel with the pet at the time of their choosing. So this could be 3 p.m. rather than having to do your discharge consults at peak times in the after work period where everyone wants to do a consult. You could just do it asynchronously, record the video. Hi, this is Dr. Thom, leash walks only for the next 10 days, keep the cone of shame on for 7 days, send us a photo of the surgical wound on day 3 over PetsApp, blah, 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 blah. So I haven't done that for a while, but you get the idea. Send that video onto the chat. And now the owner can rewatch that video as many times as they like. We've seen improved patient outcomes by showing, like, if you've got orthopedic procedures, if there's some physio to be done, record a video of that physio. The owner can rewatch that video when they're at home trying to do the exercise. That improves compliance with the aftercare, improves patient outcomes. They're not listening to you when they just got home from work in a busy clinic, trying to get home. They're trying to get home to their family too. They don't absorb that information. And so by providing the video, they can rewatch it. They can share it with anyone else caring for the pet. And it eliminates those calls just as you're trying to get home for the evening. It says, how many did Dr. Thom say to give this? What did he say to do about that? Because they can just rewatch your video. And many veterinary clinics on PetsApp for routine procedures are actually pre-recording discharge videos and put it in their template media library on PetsApp. So then anyone could actually provide the discharge instructions to that pet with just 2 clicks. There's so much here that you can do to increase efficiency so that you aren't asking more of your team. By giving them the right tools, you're actually asking less of them, you're making it easier for them. There's things that we say all day, every day. Using the chat function, you can actually have reusable templates. So those sorts of things that we're saying time and time again, our teams are saying time and time again, we can help them word it better, by the way, because sometimes the wording gets worse the busier we get. We don't craft things in quite the right way. We don't wrap them in empathy to quite the same extent. And so using template messages, personalized to the pet, personalized to the owner, you can actually say these things with just 2 clicks rather than having to recite it over the phone or have to type it out. And we've gone even further than that. We have integrated artificial intelligence into the PetsApp dashboard, not for pet owners, but for you, for veterinary teams, right? We don't think veterinary teams will be replaced by artificial intelligence, but veterinary teams augmented with artificial intelligence will be the highest performing teams. And in PetsApp, when a pet owner messages you, what we can do, if you click the Copilot, the PetsApp Copilot button, it will suggest the response, personalized to the pet, personalized to the owner. And you won't send the response. You are in charge of sending the response. So if you don't like the response, you can edit it, you can delete it, you can write your own response. If you like it, you can send it as is. If you really like it, you can save it as a template message to use it again. They're available for you and your team to use again and again to excuse me, keep that consistency of messaging. And there's so much more we can do here. I could sit here all day. I'd be talking to you well into your turkey dinner, but you could automate these things. So I mentioned in my discharge video, I mentioned asking the owner to send me a photo of the post-surgical wound on day 3. You might do it on day 5 or some other time. But often people will have the pet owner bring the pet back in so they can physically check a post-surgical wound. It's perfectly appropriate, I think, to have an automated nudge, a reminder. You know, we're all used to reminding for parasiticides, vaccinations, appointments at this point. But we can, with PetsApp, you can get even more sophisticated. Yes, you can do all of those in the form of push notifications, SMS text, emails, postcards, but you can get even more sophisticated with the nudges that you're doing here. And you can say for any surgical procedure, any procedure that leads to a surgical wound, on day 3, I want to nudge the owner and remind them to send me a photo of the surgical wound. Have a vet tech asynchronously review this. And those that need to come in, those that you're worried about, can still come in, but you save a whole lot of time. And the best thing, you can do this at a time you're choosing. This is not an urgent thing, right? It's when the photo comes in, I can tag it as a post-op check, and a vet tech can work through 10 of those in a go, and decide. The majority won't need to take up infinite time and resources, but the ones that do, you'll be able to identify. If you're not sure, have them come in, right? This is not about inappropriately replacing physical touch points with digital touch points. That's what the other guys are trying to do. But it is about providing the most convenient access points for pet owners and providing a better way, more convenient way of doing things for your teams. And this fits that bill. We talked about the ability to do reminders. You could follow up on your dental recommendations, that sort of thing. And we even could do self-serve appointment booking. So the call to action for your reminders is improved, because too often the call to action for reminders that you send right now is call us. And what don't you want right now? You don't want people calling you about non-urgent issues. So instead, if the call to action was start a chat, and that chat means we've got 3 hours to reply, or if the call to action is book an appointment, or that call to action is subscribe to our wellness plan, or visit this link for more information, the call to action is much richer than just call us. And generating a higher volume of non-urgent phone calls is the exact opposite of what you should be doing as a veterinary business manager at this moment in time. Okay, so for those of you that think, who is this Thom guy? He's just made up this this funnel. What is this? I'm not the only one that thinks this is a good business model, that this is a good way to run your business. This is exactly what Amazon does with Amazon Prime. They have a broad top of funnel. You might not know this, but second only to Google, Amazon is the most trafficked search engine on the internet. So it's the second most popular search engine on the internet outside of the alphabet Google organizations, companies. So they get a whole lot of search volume coming in, people surfacing all kinds of things that they would like to buy through their search bar. And then that means they've got this very broad top of funnel. And then you might also not know that actually less than half of what you buy on Amazon is actually sold to you by Amazon. So the majority of what you buy on Amazon is sold to you by third-party resellers on the Amazon platform. So what's Amazon doing there? They've got a broad top of funnel, surfacing everything that you could possibly want to buy, and then they're cherry picking what portion of that demand they want to service themselves, right? And leaving the rest to third-party resellers. And then they're matching you up to a subscription, membership, Prime. Over half of all households in the US have a Prime subscription. The Prime subscription fees alone generate $10 billion plus for Amazon on a recurring basis. And because you have such a delightful experience, you tell your friends about it, and they recommend other, there's cross-sell, upsell going on as they recommend other things that you might like. Similar users have purchased this, people that purchase this also purchase that. They know your purchase history. And so there's this great business model that Amazon use, and they've got to the point where 50% of all households have a Prime subscription. What else do over 50% of all households have? They have a pet. There's a lot of analogies here, right? There's a lot we can learn from these would-be disruptors, and we better learn it quick, and we better apply it quick into our businesses so that we maintain the custodians, our place as the custodians of patient care, and don't get displaced there. And so back to our veterinary funnel and thinking about the 3,000 patients, active patients that come into the top of our funnel at the average veterinary clinic. And what are you doing with all of that? What are you doing with the 853,800 bones, the 54,000 nails, the 111,600 teeth? Well, do you know? Do you know what the probability is when a patient comes into clinic? What's the probability they leave having had a dental that year? What's the probability that a patient that contacts with one of your veterinarians or one of your veterinary professionals, what's the probability they get their blood pressure checked, or a urine screening, a fecal screening? What's the probability they'll be on a on a prescription diet, because that's what generates the outcomes for your business. And these outcomes can be both prospective and retrospective. Right? So I mentioned earlier a little bit about creating new habits, generating compliance, concordance and compliance with any recommendations with a complete patient advocacy toolkit. And so there will be, for any of you, and I'm not the best person to give you the clinical recommendations here, there's great resources online like the American Animal Hospital Association to give you ideas about what the best preventive healthcare recommendations are. But I think most vets, most of us, could come up with a box of items, a list of items that we think the vast majority of the patients we see should have done for them. The vast majority of pet owners should agree to if they want to have their pet live the longest, happiest, healthiest life possible. And then it's about how do we ensure those pets get that? And that's something that we're not super good at as a profession, across the veterinary professions. We lift up the lip of the animal, we see some terrible teeth, and we say, you should maybe start to perhaps consider thinking about getting a dental for your pet. What we mean is you should get a dental. You needed a dental 3 years ago. You should definitely get one now. But what we say is you should maybe start to think about considering perhaps getting a dental. And what does the owner say? The owner says yes. The owner says yes. And we think we've done our job because the owner said yes. But the owner isn't saying, yes, I'll get the dental done. The owner is saying, yes, I'll maybe start to perhaps consider thinking about getting a dental for my dog. And the same thing happens next year and next year and next year. And that dog never gets the dental. It needs, in fact, that dog, the only thing that dog gets is a painful mouth, right? That's not good. So what patient advocacy tools can we have? And none of us came into the professions to become salespeople. And that's part of why we qualify recommendations that should just be very clear, because we don't want to risk being salesy. And that's where these template messages, this is where PetsApp Copilot can come in. It can actually write, you can have a pre-written recommendation that sounds just right. It makes the recommendation just right without me feeling awkward and salesy. But what you can also do is you can have this patient advocacy toolkit. So you can have that list of items wrapped up in a membership. You can say to a pet owner, effectively what you're saying to them is, if you prospectively agree with me that these are the right items to do for your pet over the coming year, if you commit now to doing that over the coming year for your pet, then I will allow you to spread the costs monthly, and I'll maybe give you a small discount and some other incentives. Maybe I'll give you a discount on the dental at the end of the year, that sort of thing. Maybe I'll give you unlimited consults. Other great things that you can do that I'd love to talk to you about that I mentioned in other talks that I do. Okay, so that's prospective compliance. You have a membership plan someone subscribes to, they're opting in to comply with the bucket of items, the list of items that you think that they should do for their pet this year, regardless of whatever else happens. What about retrospective compliance? What about the people that didn't sign up for that plan? Do you leave those behind? No. We have this concept of loyalty plans. And loyalty plans is something I think historically has been done terribly in the veterinary world. We've just copied what the large grocery stores do, right? And that's not good, because the grocery stores are doing loyalty plans and club cards and all that sort of thing in order to track consumer behavior. They're tolerating an increase in operational complexity in their businesses in order to have data on what each customer buys. We already know what every client buys because we have a legal obligation to have a complete medical record, just like Amazon. You know, Amazon has a complete list of the last thing you bought and the first thing you bought and everything in between. We already have that data. So inviting operational complexity in our business in exchange for the data we already have, not a good idea. Sounds like a good idea because other businesses do it. But if you understand the nuance of a veterinary business, not the best idea. What is a good idea is to say, look, I've got this membership plan that you can prospectively agree to, so you can agree in the future. But I also have a way of seeing, have you done these things retrospectively? So if you do each of the things that I think you should do retrospectively, you will attain points for doing those things. And once you hit the point threshold, you'll unlock many of the same benefits as a member would unlock, right? And actually, you've now provided me a signal that you would be great for our membership plan. And so I can lock in another year of compliance with my recommendations. Because we often see clients are compliant for 1 year, not compliant for a year, compliant for another year, not compliant for 2 years. If we could ensure that they consistently did the things that we think are great for maintaining the health and well-being of their animals, then that would be fantastic. And one way to do that is with this concept of retrospective compliance driven by a loyalty plan and prospective compliance driven by a membership plan, with the two meeting in the middle. I hope that makes sense. We'd love to show you exactly how we've built this out on PetsApp just head across to petsapp.com, book a demo with us, and we'll take you through that. But it works really well to just create this rising watermark of pet owner compliance in your business. Where are your pet owners today, and how can we shift them up to the next level and up to the next level and up to the next level in terms of doing what's best for their pets? Because remember, pets are chronically underserved healthcare consumers. Look at the probability of a pet in your clinic getting a dental, and ask your teams, do we do too many dentals or not enough? I don't know many clinics, if any, that would say they do too many, right? And so, yes, this complete patient advocacy toolkit is membership for prospective compliance and loyalty for retrospective compliance. Okay, and so here comes the science part, here comes more math, and I'll jump into this with you. But there is this North Star metric that we're managing for here. And if you go away from this webinar with just one thing, one takeaway, I want you to know how to at least know the concept of customer lifetime value. Even if you're not sort of pedantically measuring it, at least have the broad intuition of there being this thing called customer lifetime value. And this is the value of your customer over their whole lifetime of interacting with you. And veterinary clinics are customer lifetime value businesses. We have long customer lifetimes, and the value peaks about 7 years in, right? And so if you are churning through your customer base, you are not seeing the peak in customer lifetime value. And if you are tolerating lower levels of compliance, you are not optimizing the customer lifetime value. And of course, you would never recommend something that your patients didn't need. And so by optimizing for compliance, you're also delivering better patient outcomes. And so customer lifetime value here, I've got calculations here for how to work that out. It's your customer lifetime value in dollars is your average customer lifetime in years times by the average customer value. Now, what we're doing here is we're ignoring for the time value of money. So for any accountants out there, yes, $10 today is worth more than $10 in a year. And this represents something called the time value of money. And over the last little while, it's been safe to ignore the time value of money, but with rising interest rates, we should probably include the time value of money. This is something your accountant can help you with. There are online tools for this. But to my mind, if you know that you're simplifying here and you're doing apples to apples comparisons, this is good enough. This is a good enough point to be at. And so you say, okay, Tom, but how do I calculate average annual customer value? Well, that would be your average transaction value in dollars multiplied by the transaction frequency. How often does the average pet or pet owner transact with you? And you have to decide, are you doing customer lifetime value at the level of pet owner or the level of pet? I would generally do this at the level of pet, because the pet is, the consumer. That's the one. The pet is the thing consuming products and services ultimately. And so I would calculate this at the level of pet, but some people do at their level of pet owner. Bonus point if you know it for both. And you said to me, okay, Tom, you said average customer lifetime. How do I calculate my average customer lifetime? This is a really neat trick. 1 over your customer churn, which I'll tell you how to calculate on the next slide, gives you your customer lifetime. So the rate at which you are losing customers, 1 over that gives you your customer lifetime, your average customer lifetime, assuming you're losing customers at a consistent rate. How do you estimate your customer churn? Well, it's your number of customers at the start of the year minus the number of those customers still active at the end of the year. So it's not your active customers at the start of the year minus your active customers at the end of the year. You're taking a cohort of active customers at the start of the year and how many are still active at the end of the year. So basically, this sum at the top of the equation is giving you how many customers that were active with you at the start of the year are no longer active with you at the end of the year. Divide that by the total number of customers active at the start of the year. That will give you a churn percentage. And then take your, for customer lifetime value, you take your average customer lifetime and multiply it by the average customer value per year. Hopefully that makes sense. Happy to provide these slides to people so you can go through them in your own time. Just email me, Tom, with an entirely unnecessary H in it, THOM @petsapp.com, and I'll be happy to provide these slides to you. So let's go through a worked example. Let's say you have 3,000 active clients at the start of the year, subtract 2,700 are active at the end of the year, that's 300 over the 3,000 active at the start of the year, that's a 10% churn. And so 1 over 10% gives you an average customer lifetime of 10 years. If your average customer transacts with you 2.2 times, and you have this average customer value, average transaction value, then your average customer value per year is going to be $440. Obviously, insert your own numbers in here. And so that gives you $440 of average customer value per year over a lifetime of 10 years. That gives you a customer lifetime, an undiscounted customer lifetime value of $4,400. If you were to discount for the time value of money, you can see the geek in me couldn't resist giving you the accurate answer. So if you look at the net present value of $4,400 over 10 years, that's 7% interest rate. That customer lifetime value, adjusted for the time value of money, is $3,090. But don't worry too much about that, please. Just think about how you can optimize for your average customer lifetime. How can you optimize for average transaction value? How can you optimize for transaction frequency? That is how you optimize for customer lifetime value. And so I've, giving you some outputs here that a clinic might do. So you might, with these probabilities, with these inputs coming through this probability funnel, you might get 750 years of flea prevention, 210 scale and polishes, 800 blood tests, 10 repaired cycles. The important thing is you know what this is for your own business, and you take actions to improve it, and you monitor that improvement, and you iterate through that cycle. And we want to help you with this. We have tech touch patient advocacy tools at PetsApp, where you can make a dental recommendation for Siggy, and then we can automatically follow up on that dental recommendation, advising why it's so important to do dentistry for the pet, and giving them a route through which to book that appointment. Now, for a dental, you're not going to allow them to reach into your appointment calendar and self-serve book that, but the chat is a great forum, great format for booking that appointment and asking any other questions they might have. You can put in links. It might be that the dental is discounted on your membership plan, and so anytime you recommend an item that would be included in the membership plan and someone's not a member, you can have a call to action of join our membership. Anytime someone that is a member consumes an item that is included in your membership, you can nudge them about the value that they receive to reduce any chance of them churning off the plan. All kinds of wonderful things you can do here to optimize the outcomes. Now, I've thrown a lot at you there, and there's a lot of theory there for us to put into practice, but I just want to remind you of what Goethe said. He said, it's not enough to know, we must also apply. And so I don't want you just to sort of take this as theoretical. Like I say, I've run Veterinary Connects, and PetsApp in many ways is a codification of the operating models I was using with vets one at a time, and clinics one at a time, and put into an operating system that can benefit your clinic and see you operating incredibly efficiently, delighting your pet owners, delighting your team. And Amos Tversky, the late great Amos Tversky, behavioral economist, he said, you waste years by not being able to waste hours. So for those of you that say you've not got time, this all sounds great, Tom, but I've not got time, listen to Amos. You waste years by not being able to waste hours. I want to thank you all for wasting about an hour with me today. Hopefully it wasn't a waste. Will tell me either way. I'll be happy to help you with any of what we discussed today. Go across to petsapp.com, book a demo with us. You've got my email, phone number here. Really, I'm a big geek for all this stuff. Will is too, the whole PetsApp pack, big geeks for this stuff. Really love what we do, really passionate about the place of the local veterinary clinic at the heart of the pet care journey. Really wanted to see it stay there. Happy to take any questions that might have come through for me.
Thanks so much for that, Tom. Lots of amazing stuff for us to dig into once these slides get shared and reflect on after this call. I've been collecting some questions as we've been going along. So what I'm going to do there is just pose them to you to get a bit more detail. So here, one of the questions that came up in the chat was around the way that you're positioning change. So I really liked how you're talking about change. I'm really keen on implementing PetsApp. What does the change process look like there?
Yeah, unfortunately, the sort of benchmarking, the anchoring for change in a veterinary environment, especially when it comes to software, is not always a great one. And I worked at veterinary clinic groups. I was chief operating officer of multiple veterinary clinic groups where we would align the practice management system, for example. And changing practice management system is an incredibly stressful thing to do. It can be a high point of staff turnover, because people don't enjoy the change. PetsApp is not that, right? PetsApp can be, you can do a demo with us, sign up today, and be up and running within the day. It's something that you can hit the ground running with. And the wonderful thing is, we've worked really hard at answering the question of what's in it for me, for a veterinary team. This is a question that veterinary teams have every right to ask, but because of the type of person that self-selects into a veterinary career, we don't tend to ask it. We'll be thinking it, probably, possibly, but we won't be outwardly asking what's in it for me. And it comes back to this idea of nothing being too much to ask of me in the service of companion animal welfare. Well, guess what? It is. We're all stretched at this point. And so when we're implementing PetsApp, I think we do a really good job, because it's genuine. It's backed up by evidence of communicating and what's in it in it for me to the veterinary team. What's in it for me? Well, that phone that won't stop ringing. Those phone calls are going to come down. Those voicemail messages that you have to try and connect with the owner on because they didn't get through first time. You were going to reduce those missed calls by 85%. Your pet owners that were frustrated for being on hold for 20 minutes and were more difficult to deal with than they otherwise needed to be will now be delighted and be giving you 5-star ratings consistently. So starting with the what's in it for me with the veterinary team sets up a virtuous cycle. By getting a high proportion of pet owners to engage through this platform very quickly, we titrate it so it's not too quickly. That's important too. You don't want to overwhelm people. But by titrating it so that it becomes immediately relevant and people see these immediate benefits, like the 85% reduction in missed calls, like saving them 3 hours per day, that then makes them think, yes, this is a better way of doing things. And then they advocate for that way of doing things. And you see this virtuous cycle where you get up to 70, 80% of pet owners actually engaging through this modality. Some clinics it's 100%. Some clinics require that the pet owners, their members, are on PetsApp. But for those that get up to 80%, guess what? The phone lines are really available for the 20% that want to interact only in that way. That works too. And so I think getting that change management process right is part of the secret sauce of what we do well at PetsApp. I think that comes down to so many of our team having worked in practice, having experienced this, having been at the coalface, and know that you come to a session like this and you think that would be a good idea, but then when the rubber meets the road, the solution is too inflexible. It doesn't actually tolerate the operational complexity of a veterinary clinic, where every clinic has its own particular way of doing things. Whereas PetsApp, we built it from day one to tolerate this multitude of ways in which people run veterinary clinics, from the mobile veterinary clinic, single vet mobile veterinary clinic, all the way up to a massive referral hospital. They're very different operating models, but PetsApp tolerates them all.
Awesome, thanks for that. Next up was somebody it was around the time when we were looking at how to handle inbound messages from your clients in a more efficient way, and they were asking around they already use emails for this, and so what makes PetsApp better than emails?
Email's the new snail mail. Email's too slow, and I can tell you this as a vet in practice. I'd have owners come in to a consult and say, "Did you get my email?" I'm like, "What email?" Yes, I did get the email with a very blurry photo of your dog's ear, and I replied saying, "Can you send me a video or like a less blurry photo?" Like, yeah, I sent you a video, but I didn't have time in between then and now in the consult to check and find that out. And so you need something that is less real time than the telephone, doesn't subject you to the tyranny of the telephone, but is not so slow it just gets lost in email and the snail mail. You need something. You need it's almost like accordion model of time, where you can act as close to real time as you want to when you want to, but you can also buy yourself time to respond when you're busy and you don't have time to respond. And there's lots of clever things that you can do here. Like, we do not send a read receipt to the pet owner. The pet owner doesn't see when you've read their message, because if they see that you've read their message, they're going to expect an instantaneous response. It's just like you interact when you make some Facebook Messenger. You're like, "They read my message. Where's my reply?" So we don't set you up for that as a veterinary team, but we do show you when the pet owner has read your message, because we don't want to create that scenario where, similar to leaving the voicemail and never knowing whether the pet owner listened to it. So even if you haven't got a reply from the pet owner, you can at least see, they've read it. Okay, then you can move on to the next thing.
Awesome. And another question was around when we were talking about loyalty and wellness plans. I put out the poll, and it looks like everybody, or most of the people on the webinar, actually have a wellness plan already. And someone actually messaged in saying, how can they use their wellness plan with PetsApp at the same time?
Yeah, so we've seen that PetsApp users increase the uptake of their wellness plan by 35%. And so there's lots of ways that you can do that. We allow you to manage your wellness plans via PetsApp, just inherently on the platform. So you can take one-off payments, but you can also take subscription payments. And it's super flexible. You can create a wellness plan within minutes and start offering that to pet owners. You can invite them to join your wellness plan via the chat. You can have that embedded in your website. They can subscribe via the app, via the web portal. You can do campaigns that encourage them to sign up. So lots of different points at which you can have this call to action about joining your wellness plan. That can be tied into your reminders. So anytime you remind against an item that would otherwise be included in the wellness plan, that can be put in there as well, that call to action of joining the membership, joining the wellness plan. So lots of different integration points for wellness plans. One really cool thing, and I very rarely make a recommendation for 100% of veterinary clinics, and I don't think this is quite 100%, but it's like 90-odd% of veterinary clinics. I think you should be moving towards including unlimited consults in your wellness plans. I think having PetsApp in place at your clinic will give you the confidence to do that, because when you say unlimited consults, it could be an online or offline consult. And when we say an online consult, we don't mean a real-time video consult necessarily. You can do those on the PetsApp platform. We don't see so many of them being done. It's more just a digital touch point. And calling it unlimited consults creates a huge value perception that will drive uptake of your wellness plan. But because you're getting to cherry pick by doing digital triage, having that broad top of funnel, and then cherry picking which are the richest patient advocacy opportunities that most need your precious in-clinic time and resource. That's what it's setting you up to do with this wellness plan with unlimited consults. And so it's actually very cheap to serve, but very high value perception in the eyes of the pet owner. So that would be one sort of tip I'd push people on, where they're really confident on the wellness plan that they have today.
Great. Well, I think that pretty much brings us to time there. And so just wanted to again say thank you for sharing that amazing material with us. For everybody who's looking to get hands-on slides after that, those will be shared around, and recordings, those sorts of things will be accessible, and so we'll make sure we get those to you. But once again, thank you so much, Dr. Thom, for sharing all of that amazing information with us. And thanks everybody for joining us, and have an amazing Thanksgiving. And
happy
we'll
Thanksgiving,
see
everyone.